They've got everybody behind that process. So this is a panel discussion. We wanted to lay some framework in terms of content from planning and the visioning process. But frankly, sometimes the greater value is just in the questions that you have around either the planning process or the visioning process. So if you would, we'll take, I think we've got about 30 minutes for questions. Either one can address it. You can address your question to either, to the group, however you'd like to do it. That being the case, who would have the first question? Brian?
Mine is maybe part comment and part question. I would just observe that both of your clubs seem to have latched onto the idea of assigning responsibility to individuals. And I noticed in both cases that names were identified or committee chairs were identified. And it seems to me that that's so important, because otherwise what is assigned to the group as a whole, no one maybe feels personal responsibility for it. And there's not a champion to make sure that something happens. Was that intentional? Maybe that's my question.
From my end, definitely intentional. You're assigned the task and you're expected to achieve it.
We talked repeatedly about accountability, and so the visioning took care of the lodestar. Where are we going? What are we working towards? What's important to us? But the strategic plan is how you put it in place, right? And we're light on some things. We're light on some hard budget numbers, but we think we have a framework that will coalesce as we get into June and July. But what I think we've gotten right is accountability, right? So if you say, so who's running your RILA project or your Interact or whatever? I'll tell you, there's going to be a subcommittee chairman, a chairperson that's going to run that, and then roll up to that service committee chairperson, who's going to then roll up to the president. And they all answer to the board. And then once a month, each committee chairperson has to report to the board. Okay? So there's accountability. The president's accountable because, in this case, Derby Jones, the incoming president, he's going to be the one to appoint the committee chair. And that committee chair is going to appoint the subcommittee chairs. And so there's I won't say chain of command, because it's not a military type structure, but there's certainly some accountability for there's some accountability for who gets what done, and then you have the visioning process that has prioritized what's important. So yeah, accountability was a big thing. We're light on some things. One thing that I think we did right was weave in some accountability in this strategic plan.
Who would have the next question?
I'd like to ask Rick, how long have you had the past president's council? That's something I've heard suggested many times.
Yeah.
I've suggested it to our board,
Yeah.
but it just never goes anywhere. And what did it take to get it in place?
It was very easy, because one of the things that we wanted to do was look closely at some type of strategic plan, and the board knew that they were going to be tied up on items that are down in the grass a little bit. So they were very happy with it. What we did was, about December, that council was established. And then we asked all the past presidents to come together, and I met with them, and I said, what do you think? Because without their input, without them taking responsibility, it would have never flown. So all of a sudden and I'm going to be careful how I say this, but all of a sudden these past presidents shook the rust off and said, let me in, coach. I want to play. And they were excited about it. So that really excited us, because then they were able to take the strategic planning, and we gave them about 15 items to look at. They discarded all but 4. Just similar to what you just seen in Jamie's presentation, and said, this is what we're going to look at. And we didn't argue with them on that, but that was a process that that we were very excited about, because they wanted something to do. They wanted to be a part of the success of the club, because they had been part of the success years ago.
You might know that this is our first year to have a past president's council. I'm not sure if that's even what we call it, but they're meeting once a month, and there's about 15 members. And I think it added, because they were so involved in the visioning process, I think it added credibility to the process.
Absolutely.
And gosh, and it was Lawrence Sullivan's idea, as far as I know. I don't know where he got the idea, but Lawrence Sullivan, our current president, drove it. And man, what a resource to the club. I can't believe every club doesn't have it. I don't know why we didn't do it before, because it is an enormous resource for us.
As a follow-up, I was gonna ask but in both cases, you broaden, what I would call broaden the base. You had more than just the board involved in this process. You wanted to get more people involved. Past President's Council, in your case, and then I was gonna ask Jamie, in your case, how did you select who to get involved in the processes?
We started with the board and just made it default. Every board member needed to be there. And then very next was our past presidents. That was the very next line that we filled in from. And then we opened it up. So we figured out how many we had left, how many spaces open, and then we took that out to the rest of the club and announced it and said, hey, we need 30, we've got this many open spaces. We'll make it work if we end up with more. And it came out to be just about the right number of 30. So that's how it
I'm Gib Backlund. I'm in the Murfreesboro Noon Club, and I'm the incoming president of Lebkuecher, I guess, this coming year. So we're already talking about some of those things. But I just have a couple of logistical questions, I guess. Do you meet at noon or in the morning, or?
The Hendersonville Club meets in the morning. We start our meeting for the breakfast about 7 o'clock.
And you have hour-long meetings, hour and a half?
Hour.
And what percent of your clubs are Rule of 85?
I get this asked a lot. We do have 20/80 rule in our club. 80% of the club works very hard, and the other 20% helps them. So we do have a huge amount of people that are involved.
Yeah.
You probably saw there were 52 committees.
Yeah, I
And
saw that.
of those, we brought in 90 other people who were in the process of running that committee. So
Yeah.
once you assign responsibility, you can get way beyond 20% in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So you have 150 members?
We have 168 members.
168?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we probably end up counting everybody that's involved in it. We will probably have 140 members who are
That are
very
active.
active in the
Yeah.
club.
So
Very active.
that's as a result of having committees that where you
Exactly.
have things for people to do.
Sure.
And, but when I say Rule of 85, I mean how many people are, retired, have worked, members and are
yeah.
age of 85.
Our average age is 47,
Oh, okay.
and so it's not a real old club. Do
Right.
we have some old? We have just elected flagpoles at our memorial in Hendersonville,
Yeah.
and we've got 5 veterans of World War II, a great generation who will be there.
Yeah.
But the majority of our club is the mean average would
Yeah.
be a little more than 47.
I think that's a little younger than our club. How about your club?
51, I think, is the average age.
Uh-huh.
51,
Okay.
maybe a couple years ago it was 52. It's
Yeah.
come down a little bit. We had a lot of, our club size stayed, I think we netted 2, but we turned over a lot of,
Yeah.
got a lot of new people that are involved and paying dues and, doing all those things. And so our club is healthier than it was a year or 2 ago, for sure.
That sounds like you accomplished the strategic plan fairly quickly. I mean,
Oh, it didn't feel very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, we started talking about it in November, and we still
Right.
haven't presented it to the club for a final up or down.
but you, in a 4.5-hour meeting, you
Oh, yeah.
fleshed it out.
Yeah. I mean, the facilitators do a really good job. I mean,
Yeah.
all you're doing, it's a lot, but
Yeah.
all you're doing is coalescing. You're getting a consensus and coalescing around what is important to the club. I'll tell you, a glaring thing that we left out was, we didn't identify a guiding star philanthropic effort. We still haven't done it,
Yeah,
right? So we have, rodeo is our fundraiser. And so for example, you know, the 80-20 rule, ours is 70-30, or maybe even better than that, because rodeo is so big, we have to have so many people working on it all year long,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise it would be typical 80-20. So rodeo is what we do, but that's what we're known for, but we've been using our philanthropic dollars, you know, from this highly successful fundraising event every year to just, it's a shotgun approach. We do
Right.
this, we do that, and sometimes we do
Yeah.
this, sometimes we do that, and it's just, and so out of this process, we didn't get that guiding star philanthropic project, and we didn't try to. We just said, you know what, that's something that we're gonna look at over the next couple of years. We've identified very specific goals. We know we wanna build a permanent meeting location. And by the way, in the strategic planning session, we identified we're gonna spend $250,000 towards it, okay? May end up having to spend more. That's a big project. At some point, those dollars will stop having to spend, at some point, that won't be as big a part of our budget. And so we want to give ourselves time to say, what are we going to be known for philanthropically, not just for the rodeo? What are we going to be
Right.
known for accomplishing with the money we raised from rodeo? So we didn't get that accomplished. But yes, in the vision process, we got just about everything else prioritized, and it took about 4.5 hours.
and your facilitator came from within Rotary.
For the visioning process, that's right, four Rotarians out of the 6780 district. around
And you paid their travel and per diem and everything for the.
Yeah, I mean, I think we ended up just paying one lady's hotel.
Yeah.
I think two of the other people drove back, and then a fourth stayed with family close by. They didn't ask us to, you know.
Ideally, the district would like to develop a team like that, a
That-
visioning
that-
team
yeah.
that can work within our district, you know.
Yeah.
But they are willing to help us and bring
Uh-huh.
their folks over here
Yeah.
until we get our own team put
Yeah,
together.
Okay,
I mean, we already know as a club, we're gonna be,
yeah.
helping out on that. But
Yeah.
at least for the first couple of vision, if there's a visioning session done in this district, you know, the first couple, we probably maybe give one or two of us, and then have some people who still know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because we're new at this, but yeah.
And your club's the same way? You had help?
We have not done vision yet.
Oh, okay.
Do we have the next question? Yeah.
And this goes to Jamie. So the rodeo is so visible. Franklin knows Rotary Club, but I noticed one of the points up there is make for public awareness, and that's, I think, the problem we have is they know Rotary, but what do they do? If y'all come up with things from that you're gonna be doing to help the public become aware of what we do?
Aware of what Rotary, the organization does,
Yes.
or just our
Besides just
club?
party or whatever
Yeah.
the public might think Rotary's
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, you know, we did. So we have a public relations committee, and we identified a lot of things that we kind of were just grasping at occasionally and said, hey, this is a priority. So public relations is one of them, and it's a separate committee. And so, for example, tonight at the rodeo, for those of you who come out, you'll see that we did a video about being this close. And we've got a booth set up, and we're asking everybody at the rodeo to come get their picture taken.
That's great.
Us being this close. So you'll see a video up on the big screen. So that was something that we just, you know, that I didn't, I'm not that smart. One of our, the people who are handling public relations is doing, right? So, but that came, I think, partly from saying, hey, this is important to us. And it's not just about our club, it's about Rotary. And so, because in that, we're not promoting our club, we're promoting being this close, right? So, yes, to answer your question. And that's one of the good things about the visioning process is you put in stone what's important to us. We can't do everything. What are we going to do with our time and our resources?
And Alan helped you, which was so good of him,
Oh,
with the strategic planning process.
he drove out from Nashville and stayed. It was a 3.5 hours. I mean, from the time we started. So
Yeah.
you were there an hour early, and then another 3.5 hours.
And what do you normally charge, about $500 an hour?
Not the Rotary.
And,
But your time is very valuable.
yeah, no, he graciously gave us his time, and he really helped us to stay on track with it, because when you start, it's one thing, visioning was more fun. The hard part was strategic planning, because then you start really getting down to brass tacks. Well, what does this mean, this priority? Well, how much are we going to allocate of our resources, and how important is that going to be versus this? Where's it going to fit in the plan? Well, what does this visioning and output mean? And how do we put that into action? And that's when it started, it got a little contentious, between some of the folks participating, just because you have different ideas of how to go about doing it. So you need a facilitator, you need a professional facilitator to do it.
Something that Rick mentioned and you mentioned as well is responsibility. People, first off, get the buy-in and then the responsibility. But then it goes back to you achieve what you measure. There's got to be that accountability built in. And we're an all-volunteer organization,
Right.
Do you fire them?
Yeah.
You just have to somehow get people that are really passionate, and some of them need a little coaxing or coaching or so forth. I'm sure you guys would agree.
But you're not going, when you've got 52 activity chairs, you're not going to get 52 superstars, but you're going to get a whole bunch that are close to being superstars. The others, some mentoring, coaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call it, is important. And you're right, they're volunteers. You got to respect their time. I get on occasion fussed out a little bit about that by my wife, who thinks that I don't respect your time sometimes, but I do. But you've got to stay on course.
Both of you, in your process, you had a series of meetings where you got to the outcome of which we're seeing some of today. Maybe to talk about the importance of breaking that process up, or how you decided to break that process up, so that people have, I assume, the endurance to get through what they need to get done.
Jamie probably did more of that than I did. That we did have, obviously, a series of meetings, but I would kind of defer those series of meetings over to Jamie, and I'd be glad to. Mine were just not that complicated. It really was.
We, the visioning process is pretty. There's a template there to follow, and so we just decided that we didn't want to just do that. I think we've all sat in goal-setting meetings and meetings where you prioritize, but you don't get it into action. So we said, all right, if we're going to do this, and this is all that we're going to get out of that, and that's the output of what's important, then we need to have a follow-on strategic planning session and dedicate an equal amount of time, if we need that, to be able to get that output, that something on paper that we can follow. And so we decided to do it 2 weeks later. I don't know why 2 weeks. Gave us all 2 weeks to catch up on our day jobs if we spent too much time on Rotary stuff, but not so long that it wasn't fresh in our minds. And so we did 2 weeks after, and then in my mind leading up to it, that was going to be it. That was far from it, because then you had to take the output from the strategic planning session. I mean, when you walk out of there, you're not going to have a plan written down. You've got to then take that and put it on paper and figure out how to do that. And we didn't get everything done that we wanted to get done, so we had to make some executive decisions on the margin to clean it up, and so that took more time. But I think over that process, I think it allowed us to, by doing it over a series, what ended up being from mid-February to late March, before we had the framework of the document. I think by having about a month and a half process, it allowed us to kind of deal with some of the issues that were creeping up, like, well, we've always given money to the J.L. Clay Senior Citizen. Are we not, or Senior Citizen Center? Are we not going to do that? And we always give $1,000. We've been doing it for 30 years. Why are we not going to do that? And one of the outputs of the visioning was, we don't want to use a shotgun approach. In fact, I don't know if you remember the term from strategic planning. We want to be narrow and deep. We want to focus our efforts and accomplish things. So that became the catchphrase: narrow and deep. We're not just giving $1,000 checks to everybody. We're going to focus on what we're doing. And once everybody understood why that was the case, I think it was easier to deal with all these little issues that kept, everybody's little pet projects kept popping up. And it made it easier to deal with that. And I think we needed time and breaks in between these meetings to be able to do that. Especially the issue of putting $250,000 towards a permanent meeting location. Those are real dollars, and that doesn't happen overnight, right? So that gave us time to, if for no other reason, to bring in the other stakeholders that weren't a part of the process, but are those stakeholders in your club that have a say on what happens, and get them on board, and get their buy-in.
We have about 5 minutes left, I believe, in the session. Who has the next question?
How often would you recommend doing the visioning? Now that you've done this, when's the next time you plan to touch it?
Oh, boy. I probably would have a smarter answer at the end of the 5-year strategic plan. But
So it's not an annual effort?
I think if you do it right, I don't think it needs to be an annual effort.
Right.
I think there is some merit in saying, hey, we're gonna shoot for 3 years instead of 5. But I wouldn't foresee needing to do visioning no more than every 4 years. Because you should have some leadership, executive leadership, that are still in the rotation that have gone through that process. I wouldn't do it any sooner than every 3 or 4 years. I think once every 5 years is fine. In fact, I think at the end of 5 years, I think our thinking is that we're going to do this again once our 5-year plan is complete.
Your thoughts? Rip?
Every club has their own direction of what their strategic plan is going to be. If I had to look at right now, we went 3 years and that's all. We did not go 5. And not particularly any particular reason other than we could grasp and understand 3 years far better than we could 5. And I think if we, I think the people in our club in general were looking at more, they want results quicker. It's kind of like a young kid sometimes. They want it right now. And so basically that's what they want to do is what are those results. We did just the opposite of what Jamie's club did. We looked at buckets, and our big bucket first and foremost was youth, the youth initiative. And inside that youth initiative were 27 initiatives that we looked at. And those 27 initiatives were spread out all over. It was not 1 or 2. I know Nashville, your club has probably a very few, you have 1 or 2, but ours, we chose to do differently. And what it did do was 2 things. Number one, it brought the initiatives in and we could see, looking at each of these buckets, whether it be international with Guatemala and Honduras work, or is it something to do with youth? By putting out and spreading out, we touch more people in the community and we're more involved in the community, and the community recognizes us more because we must be involved with them when we start dealing with 21 philanthropic entities that we're giving money to, and there's 59 projects that we are giving sweat and money to. So it's just a different direction. That's the direction we chose to do.
For clarity, just for a quick question, would those projects all coalesce around?
We put them in buckets.
The bucket of youth.
Yeah. The 27 were in youth.
Youth.
And then there was approximately, I don't remember the exact right now, but there were probably another 20 projects that youth was part of it. Let me give an example. Youth could have been Rolla as an example. But also, we went to Guatemala and we went to an orphanage, as we've been to many years, at Remar, that we also did youth work. But that didn't fall into youth, that fell into international, even though youth was part of it. And I can name you 5 or 6 other areas. Our projects with the Southwest Dental Center, many of those people coming into that dental center were youth, but they were also adults too. So the buckets that we looked at sort of intertwined, but it was important to us to shotgun it where you guys are rifling it. And I'm not saying one is right, one is wrong, it's just the direction we decided to go.
2 points. I think you could do visioning and then do a strategic plan update 3 years later. I don't think visioning, I don't think it's forever, but I don't think you need to do it every time you do a strategic plan. For us as a club, we had meandered back and forth from one president to the other. And the good thing about that was everything was on the table. There was nothing that we couldn't get rid of, and nothing that we couldn't. And in some cases, we just lost focus in international and in youth and some of the things that Rotary International, expects of us, and that we want to do. And so everything was on the table. And so for us, having this visioning process was good because I don't think any of us knew exactly what we were going to do because we had just gone from one thing to the other, one president after the next. And so I think visioning helped us to get focus and get a direction. And so I think that was important. I think at the end of our 5-year plan, I think we'll just do another 5-year plan. I don't think we'll do another visioning process. I don't know, but I don't think.
Can I mention one quick thing and then I'll go?
I was going to give you guys a chance to get one final thought. You guys need to finish up, so that'll be your final thought.
Okay, that'll be, my other life is with the American Red Cross, and we have gone through exactly with the disaster services in Washington, what Jamie has gone through with. And we use the term re-engineering, but it's the same process that went through, and I can tell you it's very successful.
Final nugget?
As far as just determining whether visioning makes sense for your club or not, I think you really want to, I think as a club, you really want to decide if it's worth, what do you want out of it? Do you need direction as a club? We did. We knew, and everybody knew that we did. We had all this money we raised every year, and we spent it in this shotgun, helter-skelter kind of way. So we knew we needed direction. And if you decide that your club does need that kind of direction, then decide if it's worth it. Because it's a lot of time and it's a lot of resource, and you're tapping the people that are most important to your club by default. So just make sure that it's worth the time and energy as a club you're going to put into it.
Let's give our panelists a round of applause.
I knew they'd be good, but I didn't know they'd be that good.
Fantastic.
Outstanding.
You understand.
I believe we're on a break. The next